big question people have? Like, what's the thing everybody's wondering about? What's the thing I don't understand? What would I want to hear?
It's like, that's Big's Darklighter's home. So how did you know? Because I'm a nerd.
Cassie and Jim on the beach, and people are like, no. I can literally hear people that go, no.
Because Darth Vader was the scariest thing that had ever happened to anybody, and this guy literally looks like the devil.
What are you doing, C-3PO? I'm taking one last look at my friends. These aren't your friends.
And I get a later call that said, yeah, you probably want to use Wedge Antilles.
That spirit of doing everything they can to tell the story they want to tell, I think really comes through on Star Wars.
You will do not. There is no try.
I joke that the best thing about writing Princess Leia is everybody knows who she is, and the worst thing about writing Princess Leia is everyone knows who she is.
It doesn't look like they're even hungry when they get out. They're not just like, did you bring a Snickers or something?
I'm honored to be here. I'm also impressed that you got Zach Galifianakis as a guest tonight.
That's so funny.
I've always been kind of a closet Star Wars fan up until, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
I'm just sort of a fan hoping to bring other fans along. That's all I'm doing.
The galaxy isn't growing to push people out. It's growing to let more people come in and find their love so that it's able to continue and create this connective tissue that grows forever.
Where now I feel like I can't do that because somebody's going to turn it into a blog post and then it's going to become a whole thing.
I have had the best time ever on Around the Galaxy.
Coming back to a show that I dearly love and admire, so thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to a very special impromptu Around the Galaxy episode. I'm Pete Flitzer. I am normally the host of Around the Galaxy on my own, but I'm joined tonight by my good friend Nick, who is also part of the streaming Star Wars network. It feels so good to say that. Nick, how are you doing, buddy?
It does feel good. Man, I'm so excited, and you are exactly right. Last minute, throwing everything out the window, scrambling around for something that I'm really, really excited about, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Well, why don't we just skip all the formalities and let's bring in our very special guest, Mr. Snap Wexley. Greg Grunberg is joining us. Greg, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm a little disappointed that both of your beards are not in the Resistance. You could do the Resistance right here.
That's right. Get the whole thing.
Come on,
just
guys.
Up there.
All right,
you're really devoted to this.
I'll put it together and I'll do that for our live show Friday. Greg, thank you so much for joining. I have to share with everybody how this happened. And you're either a lunatic, a genius, or a glutton for punishment. Last night, you apparently had 20 free minutes. You go on Twitter and you say, "Ask me anything. I got time." And I decided to throw out there, hey, would you like to be on our show? And you're like, yeah, let's make it happen. And I was like, okay, cool. And then this morning I wake up at 4 a.m. for some reason. Don't ask me why. I check my Twitter and you friended me and I'm able to send you a message. And I was at a Philadelphia museum today with my family on a nice day off. And I'm working out the schedule to get you here. And I'm so happy you joined. How many podcasts did you get invited to over last night's 20
Actually, 2, I have to recheck. There's 2 that you and someone else, and I love this. I love the opportunity to talk to like-minded, fun, nice people, man. It's such a bonus from a lot of the stuff that I've been able to be a part of, when there's a community attached and everybody kind of takes it and runs with it. It's JJ and I both, for people that don't know, JJ Abrams, and I'm not just dropping names, he's my best friend. I've known him since I was 5. This was one of the first, when we were kids, we saw, we stood in line. Star Wars was new at the Avco Theater. I think he had seen it right before I saw it. And then we went together again. But it was the first movie that I left the theater thinking about after, back then there wasn't blogs, there wasn't any of this stuff. Right. So it was like, I was thinking about the characters and the relationships and the worlds and where it could have come from and where it could be going, and I just don't remember thinking about stuff that way up until that point. And so this is an extension of that, right? So we're sitting there, and this brought us together. We're going to talk about hopefully a lot of other stuff, but it's like Star Wars is the greatest. So I jump at the opportunity, especially when there's cool folks like you guys.
We definitely appreciate it. And so you were just saying that you were a Star Wars fan before episode 7 and 9 when you were in it, but tell us a little bit about that experience and maybe as you said, you've been best friends with JJ forever. I mean, I can say from my experience, it was a part of it was my childhood. Tell us a little about that experience for you.
Well, I had a wacky sort of view with movies and TV. I didn't I was on Heroes, right? The show that had so much comic book influence, and it was part of the story and everything. And when people they meet me or they're interviewing me, whatever, they just assume that I had deep cuts like Kevin Smith had. When we were doing Geeking Out, he was like, oh, he knew all the deep stuff. He knew the origins of the characters. He knew all the literature that would accompany something that I was just a fan of the TV show, Batman and Robin, or I would watch Star Trek, and then Star Wars it took me away. Like I said, it became it was just this wonderful escape. And then the family aspect of it and all of it, the brilliance of George Lucas and the insanity that must have gone on in that guy's head and the pitches. Can you imagine, he's pitching this, and I know you guys have probably talked about this a million times, so forgive me, but he pitches this and the network or the studio people are like, after he leaves, they're like, that guy needs to be checked out. At that time, now we look back and go, and it's what all these brilliant people, they're just ahead of us. They're ahead of that. They're creating the wave that we're all going to ride on, and we don't feel it until it builds and builds and builds. And some people jump on early, some don't. But it's Elon Musk, people. It's just like Apple Computer, Microsoft, like all these technology people. They're all laughed at first, and then so I don't know. I was swept up in it when I was a kid, and couldn't wait for the next film. And I watching the lines get bigger and seeing it. Talk about real audio experience too. Right? That's the other thing is, I did the Fabelmans, which now, and I have a small part in it, but it was shot on film. It's like, wow, it's film, and it's Steven Spielberg, and it's like you have to see that in the theater. Like you just have to, same theater experience. Obviously, the Star Wars, Star Trek, one of these big blockbuster movies is, but you just have to appreciate, the homework and the craftsmanship, the artistry that goes into this, because every little bit of it is thought out. No shot is happenstance. And then to go full circle from being such a fan and being, like you said, it was everything. So was and there's in the questions, there's you'll see where my mind went for my movie preferences back in the day, but all that escape. But anyway, going from that to then hearing that my buddy, my best friend, thanks, Jeff, much respect to you, was that he's getting the opportunity to write, produce, direct, and then he calls me and he's like, I want you to play something. I was like, what? It just completely blew me away. It blew me away. So I don't know. The other thing that could happen is that it could ruin that magical experience for you, because you're on the set and you're seeing how the sausage is made. It didn't ruin it. JJ and I are standing there like he saw these sets built. He told them what to build. He won, and he still was like slack-jawed, and then I don't know, Bob Iger shows up to take pictures with the cat, he and Anthony Daniels. He's like, Anthony comes over and he's like, you mind, we get a selfie? You're like, you're the guy who's paying for all this. And you it's just that magic, man. And there's so few things. So I'm just so lucky to be a part of it all.
That's awesome. And I want to follow up on that a little bit, talking about, you talked about the genius of people like George Lucas, but you also mentioned your childhood best friend, JJ Abrams. This man has done everything. He's done Star Trek and Felicity and Star Wars and Mission Impossible. Like there's so many things so to have that experience, and I just want to tag on a little bit more and kind of flesh out what you're saying. You get the call from your best friend. Hey, we get to go do Star Wars. We've all seen, I love the video of John Boyega, who's much younger than all of us and isn't the generation of Star Wars fan that we are. But even he walks onto the Falcon and goes, holy hell, like, look at this, look where I am, look at whatever. If you can flesh that out a little bit more, having those feelings on set, getting to do it with your best friend, like, that's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's JJ, by the way. I'm letting it go.
Yeah, you're busy. You got important stuff going on.
Are you kidding me? Write something else and then call me, okay? All right. Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I mean, like most of the times that JJ likes to surprise me a bit. So he said, all right, you're coming to London. I said, tell me about, what am I doing? He's like, you'll find out when you get there. Like, he didn't want to tell me. He was so excited for me. And I knew that I was going to be a part of something really, obviously something amazing and obviously Star Wars. But when I got there and I landed, and then I went to the whole cast that night, the whole cast and Kathy Kennedy and a bunch of other people. They were all having dinner in this Chinese restaurant. It was downstairs. And I remember going into the restaurant. I didn't see anybody. And they were like, oh, they're downstairs. And downstairs. And as I'm coming down the stairs, it wasn't a private room, but it was like, this other area of the restaurant. I see this cast and I don't recognize anybody. I was like,
right.
What? And I see, and who did I, Lapita I recognized. And like, I don't know. I just was like, this is so cool. And I'm slowly, and then somebody yells out, there's Snap Wexley. And I was like, oh my God, like that blew me away. The co-writer with JJ. Oh my God. Of episode 7.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Huge, amazing writer. He yelled that out. He was like, there he is, there's Snap Wexley. And I was like, oh my God, what? And then first of all, you hear that name and you go, yeah, I'm in. I can't wait, And then I had to be fitted. That was another really kind of emotional thing, was being fitted for the orange jumpsuit, and the boots and the whole thing. And like, I'm a big guy, so I'm like, okay, here's, it smacks of Porkins and, and like, this is gonna be awesome. And I'm making all these jokes and stuff. Hey, Matthew, thank you. Basketball. I love that. That's a huge thing.
Way back.
But yeah, that whole thing. Then, like when I work with JJ, we're working on something right now. And when we work together, I like to just hang out. It's like he's directing, he's there all the time. But when I'm not shooting for a day, I'll still go to the set and hang out with him. I mean, it's just such a pleasure.
Absolutely.
It's so much fun. So I went, and he's like, you got to meet me on stage, whatever it was, at Pinewood. And I go and I meet him there, and we walked into the Falcon for the first time. And that was, I can't even describe it. So remember, episode 7 was first, bringing it all back. And the security was ridiculous. There was, there were drones over the studio, paparazzi and magazines and stuff all the time. So going from the trailer to the set, they had cars for us. But even going from your trailer to your car, they didn't want anybody to catch what you were wearing or what you were doing. So you had to wear a cloak. So I had this thing and whatever, and it was hot, and I had and then a cloak over it, get in the car, go to the thing. But the day that I first walked on the Falcon, I wasn't working. So I just went to the set, and they took your cell phone away. You weren't allowed to have. Meanwhile, it's me, it's JJ. I snuck my cell phone in, right? So I actually have video of the first time I walked on the set, and it's a set. It's not perfect. There's pieces. The cockpit is nowhere near anything else. It's like it's whatever.
Sure.
But dude,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The emotion that came over me was just amazing. And then the thing that I remember, and of course I remember it like there was a fan blowing my hair back, but it was JJ was at the end of this hall, and like, he's just the best ever. And so I come around and I see him, and he sees me, and he's like he's got this look on his face, like, can you fucking believe this?
Exactly.
And that was the whole thing. And my first scene, I'm pretty sure it was my first scene. Where's the I have a photo. Oh man, where's the photo? I forgot what the photo is, but they send it to me. It's that picture of all of us all around, and everybody's there. Harrison's there, like we're all there, and I, Oscar says, so Snap went out and did some reconnaissance and whatever. And I'm now facing everybody, and I've got to kind of lead this The whole I mean, everybody was there. Everybody was there.
Mm-hmm.
From Carrie to Anthony to everybody. And so we did the first take. And JJ then he's like, all right, cut. Let's move the camera a little bit, whatever. And JJ comes over and he whispers in my ear. He's like, I can watch you watching the movie. You look like you're watching the movie. Because I was so in awe. I was like, I would say my line, and then I was like, I was literally going, that's fucking Harrison. And so I said, and I was like, what do you, and he said it whispering, but I was like, what am I supposed to do? That's Harrison Ford right there. And Harrison was like, oh, shut up. It was like, you know, everybody's so sweet and so great. And Carrie, man. Oh.
That's the question I wanted to ask, and I wanted to kind of tag and follow up. To be on the set, you know, obviously, Mark Hamill was probably around, but for the way the movie was structured, you know, obviously he's not going to be there all the time,
I didn't work
if
with
at
him
all.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but to be on the set with those other legends, Harrison Ford, Anthony Dean, and Carrie Fisher is the one I want to ask about. And obviously, it was yesterday, was 6 years ago that we lost Carrie. But to have that experience with your childhood heroes, with these people, you know, not only to be a Star Wars lover, but as an actor and somebody who recognizes the immense talent that they have. If you can speak to just, again, like you said, you're trapped, you're watching your heroes in front of you in the room when you're supposed to be working, but I can't imagine how profoundly powerful even that was.
I've had those experiences a number of times, and the real pros that I admire the most will immediately make sure that you are as comfortable as possible. They don't let that happen. They just don't. And I do the same thing for other actors. You know, I've been in situations recently where I'm acting, I could just see how nervous the person is, and maybe they have one scene or two scenes or whatever, or they're new to a show or whatever, and I just immediately, I'll just do, and we all do it for each other. We just go, hey, that was fucking awesome. Like, don't even, you know, or I'll ask them for advice, and they did that. And Carrie was like, do you think I should? And I know what she was doing. She's not asking for it. She's just making me feel comfortable. Right. You know, the first moment that I had with Carrie was, I think it got cut out, but it's this moment where I'm standing there and it's an over my shoulder onto her, and she's like, snap, you know, blah 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 blah. But it wasn't. We used some of that stuff in 9. You know, we had to reuse stuff, sadly. But she and then she crosses, right? So she says her line right to me, and then she crosses through. And when she crossed through, she came and she gave me a hug, and she wrapped her arms around me and grabbed my ass. and I'm like, oh my God, this is one of my heroes. And and obviously we became very close, and Billy and I are friends, very close. But at that moment I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest ever. and I'm not, and by the way, I am awesome on set. Like, I love being on set. I make it a fun thing. But JJ then walked up to me and he was like, welcome to Star Wars. Like, you know, it doesn't get any better than this. And that's the way she is. Everybody was like that. I remember having a moment with like, I think one of the best actors. They're all amazing. They're all amazing, actually. But Boyega, to me, I just love that guy so much. And I remember, you know, he was like, oh, Star Wars was such a Heroes, man. Heroes was everything, blah blah blah. And I took him off the side and I said, you got to understand what's about to happen to you. And I know he knew, but I said, man, I can't wait for you to fly, dude. You're just going to explode. You're taking off right now. Just be aware that, you know, because he's handled it so brilliantly. And I'm just so happy for all of them. Daisy, oh my God. Like, they're just the best. They're the best.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It really is.
It was real, you know, and I think that's one of the great things that Star Wars has always done is put people in the lead roles that you haven't really seen before. Though surrounded with people you have, but I think that's what makes it. I have to ask you one question, because I don't read a lot of the Star Wars books. I hate to admit that as a guy who has a Star Wars podcast. I don't.
I'm calling Charles Soule. I'm going to call Charles.
Get Charles on the phone. Yep.
That's right. You're done. You can mail your fan card directly to Greg, and
he'll shred it for me on screen.
By the way, it's funny that you say that, though, because people assume that I do. People come up to me, they're like, by the way, Nora, I mean, it's awesome that she was such a great pilot.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because my favorite Star Wars books of the few that I've read are Chuck Wendig's books, and I love Nora and Snap, and I thought that was a really cool story. And when I heard that was your name, I was like, oh, that's great. So they're bringing the character. Did you prepare it all? Or I mean, obviously you didn't know who you were until you walked into that restaurant. But have you gone back and read any of those stories? Or are you like, how do you, because you're right, I imagine people ask you all the time, when Snap did this in that book, what did you like? You got it.
Yes, I mean, look, people are like, how cool is Mr. Bones? I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then
you're like, Mr. Who?
I'm like, oh, Mr. Bones, my droid. Yeah, sure. And then I researched it, and I thought, oh, this is super cool. But yeah, I mean, I love that they expand on the characters. I love that there's a world where that can happen. Not everything I've done. Star Trek was sort of a reverse of that. Like I was the commander of Yorktown, and I didn't have a name. I was just a commander. And so my buddy Ken Lowenberg, who's brilliant, and we do Talk About It together, my charity stuff, talkaboutit.org. And he's this huge Star Trek nut. And he said to me, you have to be Finnegan. So there was a reverse of that. Like he was like, tell them. So on the set, I told them, I was like, you know what? Why don't I be Commander Finnegan? And they were like, oh, that's brilliant. They did the research and they were like, perfect. So it was just, that's great to reverse engineer. But with Star Wars, there are many times when I just feel like I wish I knew more than I did. And every time I look into it, it gives me a richer and deeper appreciation for what I'm part of, and Charles Sewell, I joke, but he's become a friend. And, these guys, I just admire them. I just find it insane that, especially now, the Star Wars canon is so big. It's branching off so well. The quality is just getting better and better. I mean, when I saw Rogue One, I was like, holy shit, man. Like, this is a look for Star Wars I've never seen before. We all felt that way. We're like, this is dirty. This is war, man. This is, I mean, it just blew me away. And then what Favreau has done with Mandalorian and all of it now, it's crazy. So my point is, when a guy like Wendig or Sewell or whatever, when they have a thought, I want to write this thing, I want to do this thing, it's just, who's wrangling these people to say, no, that can't happen because of this or this or this? I know what JJ must have gone through. I never even talked about details with him, but he's writing, and there must have been rules set out where you say, no, you can't do that because of this. You can't know everything. It's such a huge world, but yeah, I'm like you, I have to say, I'm not, my IQ is not as high as it should be, but I'm learning. And just like the Star Trek fans, the Star Wars fans, they're very forgiving. It's not like you have to know everything. No one's going to look down on you. And no one's ever said, maybe behind closed doors, they're like, this guy's an idiot. He's part of the world. How does he not know? But I mean, I know what I know, and I'm learning all the time, and I just love it. It's fun.
That's awesome. Great. Well, speaking of people judging you, we have a 10 question segment. I also want to be very respectful of your time. And again, thank you so much for joining us and
please
and hanging out.
After this, I'm here's what I'm doing. I'm signing versions of my book for people that want to buy my.
Let's talk about that before we hit 10 questions, because I want to make sure that we give that.
Am I holding it up long enough?
You are. It's perfect. It's called Dream Jumper.
Yes, it is.
You told us a little bit about it before we got on air. Why don't you give us the story again, because it's so cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a graphic novel. I knew nothing about graphic novels, and my son had a dream. When he was 12, and he woke up. He couldn't go back to sleep. I was putting him back to sleep. I said, "What was it?" He goes, "It was so real." I said, "Oh, tell me about it." And he goes, "Well, it wasn't my dream." I said, "What? What do you mean?" He goes, "It was me, but I was jumping in and out of my friends' dreams and saving them from their worst nightmares." And I thought, wow. So I go to sleep. We go to sleep. The next morning, I call JJ. And I'm like, dude, have you ever heard of this before? Like, I'm not the biggest graphic novel fan. Like, this has to have been done. And he's like, well, it's kind of like, Scanners, but for kids. Like, it's, whatever. And it cut to me at Comic-Con, and I meet this guy, Lucas Turnblom, who's brilliant. And he's got a big, long line. And I walk up, and he had done some work for my charity stuff, created a strip for the epilepsy world. And I pitched him, and he just turned white. He was like, this is the greatest. That's the greatest thing ever. So a year and a half later, we have a graphic novel, and Scholastic has put out there's 2 books. They're coming your way, signed. But it's very, very cool, and it's scary. It's very, there's a lot to it, There's a lot of history in it. There's a lot of stuff coming in the future. It's dark, but not too dark. But I'm in the process of shopping it right now as a streaming TV show. We want to do a live action version.
Fantastic.
It's pretty cool. So yeah, please, if you have a young reader, or if you're interested in the coolest fucking graphic novel ever, Dream Jumper. It's available everywhere. So yeah, check it out.
I can guarantee you that I've got a house full of people that are already excited. My wife, who you got to speak to for a minute beforehand, she's already excited about it. But yeah, we want everybody to check that out, and we're going to hit that again before we get done. Make sure everybody gets all the details, because we want them to get a part of that, because it's fantastic.
All right, you got some questions for me. Let's go.
We got 10 questions. Like I said, we won't judge you. There's no wrong answers, but the internet will. So let's have a little bit of fun with that, because Twitter, it's never controversial. Anything.
By the way, let me Brian in the comments. Thank you. He called me Matt, so obviously he's a Heroes fan. No. Thank you, Matt, for everything you've done for epilepsy awareness. My youngest has febrile seizures when she was young, and still has possible focal seizures. Matt, I cannot thank you enough for mentioning that and talking about it. Yes, our oldest son has epilepsy. I started talkabout.org, and I have a series right now appreciating people like you, Brian, that are caregivers. It's called the caregiverseries.com. I'm very proud of it. I travel the country. I give caregivers 1 day of care. Like if they love old cars like me, we hung out with old cars. I take someone for this or that, painting, pickleball, whatever, and we talk about our kids and our experience as caregivers. So the caregiverseries.com. I hate to plug, but you have
please do.
All right. So
absolutely.
Plug all you want. That's perfect. Love it.
Well, and I have to ask this question before we get to the Star Wars questions, because you said old cars. What's your go-to old car?
I'm a Bronco guy, man.
Okay.
It all started. So I steal. I'm going to admit something here that you guys are going to run with. Maybe I should do it offline. I stole something from
you can save it if you need to.
I stole something from the Millennium Falcon.
Nice.
And I'll tell you about. I can't tell you what it is.
That's right. Your secret's safe with us. We'll talk about that later. Awesome.
But I do love old cars, and so on Alias, the show that I was on, Alias, Bradley Cooper's character drove a '69 Bronco, which is now the car. People love it. It's unbelievable. Well, this was 25 years ago when people liked it, but it wasn't what it is. And I saw it, and it had no wheels, no tires, no radiator, no battery. It was because they used it on the show, and then they buried it in the parking structure at Disney. And I bought it. And I've been an old Bronco fan. Now I've got 2 '96 Broncos. One is for sale. I've got my boys love them, and they've got the '69. And I can't wait for the all electric new Bronco to come out.
The new one.
I'm definitely going to get one of those. So that's my go-to. I'm a truck guy.
I like that. I like that. I have been obsessed with the original 64.5 to 66 Mustang. When I was 12 years old, I had a subscription to Mustang and Ford's magazine as a 12-year-old, thinking one day I'm going to have this car. I still don't have it. I'm 45, but one day we're going to get there.
So let me ask you, do you, as a guy who wants a car, because I stay up and you do the same thing. It's like your wife is like, go to bed, and you're looking through Facebook Marketplace. Yes, you are. You're looking for offer up. I know. So would you rather get an old classic, an old Mustang, exactly the year that you want, that's in crappy shape, and fix it up yourself, or do you want to have something that somebody's already gone through?
I want to work on it. I want to do it. Like I don't know all the mechanical stuff, but I know a lot, and like floor pans and seats, and I can do a lot. But that's a part of the joy and the love that I think you get to put into a passion like that, something that you wanted your whole life, the chance to put. Whether it's family time, if I've got 4 girls, if one of my girls wants to ride with me to the junkyard and look for hubcaps or do whatever, that's a part of the journey in having a unicorn find. That's how I would want to do it.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen then. You're going to find it, and then you're going to lie to your wife and tell her that it costs $4,000 when it costs $8,000.
Right, and then we'll figure it out later. That's right.
Exactly. No, it is a great hobby. I've never lost money on a car. I don't buy stuff I can't afford. I mean, to be honest, I'm just being brutally honest. The 2 '96 Broncos, I bought each one of them for $3,000, and then I slowly, did the headliner, and I fixed that rip in the seat. I did, you can do things. If you're not going to a concourse level, you don't care about it being numbers matching and perfect. Who cares? It's for you. You know,
Yeah.
so
and
it's
I'm
been
and I'm
really
patient, so I have the ability to play the long game with something like that.
awesome. Well, you got to share with me the pic when it does happen. You got to send it
That's
to me
right.
and go, dude,
I
I
will
got
do.
it. I finally
That's
got
right.
it."
My day came.
Yeah,
My day
I love it.
came.
That's
All right,
awesome.
Pete, hit us with some
Cool.
Star Wars questions.
Sure, let's do that. So this is the first one. A favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book? You can say one of each. You could say one, whatever you want to do.
Well, I mean, episodes 7 and 9 for sure, because I'm in them.
That's right.
They will forever be my favorites. But I have to go back to the very first Star Wars movie that was ever released, because that's really what just absolutely blew my mind. And then my mind was blown again with The Mandalorian. Truthfully, I was like, and maybe it was because my expectation and Favreau, I know. So I knew it was going to be great. He's so talented. But when you think, I come from the world of like, TV can't be as good as film. There's just no way.
Right.
So my expectations were low, which is always good. And it was so character driven that it blew me away. So I wish I could nail it down to one thing, but those three are four, I guess, are my favorite. For sure.
I think the expectations comes up as a commentary a lot on conversations that we have with our guests, because nothing when you and JJ walked into the theater in 77, you had no expectations, and I think that's what kills, whether it's Avatar or Lord of the Rings or any movie. If you bring your adult expectations, it's so hard. And I think that really helped Mando, because we all were like, all right, it's a TV show about a guy in armor. Let's see how this goes. And that was it. So that's
and by the way, my expectations keep getting blown. Like I'm a pessimist in that, we talked about this earlier. I come from when I was a kid, it was like you had to wait 4 years for the next movie. And now it's like, oh, they're watering this down. They're watering it down. And then, oh, it blows me away. They're watering it down. Then another series that blows me away. Yeah. And I'm also discovering this through the eyes, and you guys, same thing, through the eyes of my kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like fresh eyes, getting their perspective. It's a different world. The standards are incredible. I'm not an Avatar fan, so I don't want to go there. But
it's okay. Me too.
Yeah, I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. I watch these. I haven't seen the movies, but I watch the commercial and I go, the animation's terrible. I'm like, what's going on,
dude? I took my son. He actually enjoyed it, but to me, it was a 3-hour video game cutscene. No offense, whatever.
No.
Here we are now. You're never going to get into Cameron movie thanks to us. I apologize.
Oh no.
Well, we'll transition smoothly from there to the second question, which is, and as we take a tiny divergence from Star Wars, what is your favorite non-Star Wars movie? This is a very unfair question, but let's see what you got.
Oh no, this is very fair. I am a huge Chitty Chitty Bang Bang fan.
How about that?
Yeah. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, again, and maybe that's my love of cars and tinkering. But if anybody's watching this right now, because man, you have a young audience, that.
Yep.
You have a wide audience, but the young people out there, Jeff, Dazed and Confused, okay, I get it. Yes, Napoleon Dynamite, all that stuff. But Raven knows what's up. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Those movies, and then if you want to take a well-crafted, like beautiful movie and I'd like to know yours. I'll pose this question to you: what movie outside of Star Wars, when it comes on, like if you go mid, if you're just in the middle, you turn on the TV and there it is, you have to watch it.
Yeah, it's easy for me. It's easy for me because it happens.
Mine's Raiders.
Raiders Lost Ark.
Raiders every time.
For me, it's Jaws, and it's on every summer, and I lose many a Saturday just because I'm like, oh, here we go. Let's sit down.
Yeah. For me, it is those two movies as well. But the Untouchables, for me, is also
another great.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
The tone of that movie and the beginning of that movie may be my favorite beginning to any movie. If you remember, it starts above De Niro, and he's getting shaved, and he's surrounded by reporters. But what you don't remember, maybe, is that they opened it like a play. The camera's moving and all the reporters, they're all standing still. And you think it's a frozen shot, but it's not, because you see some of them are moving a little bit. And then as soon as it's almost like the curtain parts, and then they start moving. And it's like, what just happened?
Yep.
So cool. Now
It's
I
so
got
memorable.
to say a Star Wars thing. I know this is going to take. I'm the one that said I have a half hour, and my plans clearly have changed. I apologize. Okay, talk about a full circle experience. I just did the Fabelmans with Mr. Steven Spielberg, the GOAT.
Yep.
I just because this is crazy. I sent my audition in. I thought it was another Coen Brothers movie. I worked with the Coen Brothers years ago, and I was like, this feels very Coen Brothers. They wouldn't say what it was. I didn't know, but my agent said, trust me, put yourself on tape, audition this, and I sent it in. And then about a month and a half later, I get the call that I got it. And then immediately, JJ calls me and goes, oh, man, congratulations. I've held the secret for about 2 weeks. Steven told me that you were getting this part, and I was so excited about it. I couldn't say anything. I'm like, what? It just blew me away. But here's the thing that's full circle is when JJ and Matt Reeves, when the three of us were really young, the two of them were on a public access show called Gerard Revell, this guy who hosted it, about young filmmakers. They were like 12, 13. They were doing Super 8 movies. Kathy Kennedy, who was Spielberg's assistant at the time, saw that and registered it. So now suddenly they're at DreamWorks, and Kathy gets a call as Steven's assistant from a guy in Arizona. Says, I bought a house. They told me that Steven grew up in this house, and there's a box of film. There's a box of these old Super 8 movies. Yeah, in the attic. I'm cleaning out the house. I think these are Steven's. He probably wants them. So the guy, being the good guy that he is, he came out to LA, gave them to Kathy. Steven was blown away. And she said, you know what? A lot of this film, it's all broken. I just saw these guys on TV, these two kids. They've been splicing these old films. They know how to fix it. So Kathy, with Steven's permission, calls JJ and Matt and says, Mr. Spielberg would like you guys to fix their movie.
Cow.
Holy shit. Holy cow. Right. So
Yeah.
suddenly I find, so at Matt's house and at JJ's house, they're on the floor with the splicer, and I'm behind them going, can I just have a frame of that? I was even back then, I'm like, just give me a broken frame of it. Nope. It all went back. Wow. They worked on the film. Okay. Now cut to The Fabelmans, a movie about when Spielberg was 12 and 13, making those movies. And and by the way, I starred in every one of JJ and Matt's Super 8 movies. Not every one. You know, I was in a bunch of them. And now I'm in The Fabelmans. So Steven took me, he's like, hey, let's go in the other room. And I'm like, sure. And so we when they're setting up the shot, and we sat there and we're shooting the shit, and he's just the greatest, most generous, creative. We're having just a great conversation, and I reminded him of it, and he was like blown away. So it's just like one of those things, man. You know,
that's the most meta thing I've heard in a really long time. To have that come full circle, like that's unbelievable. That's such a cool story.
Very, very cool. So anyway, so Willy Wonka, you know, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and The Untouchables, and then a movie that's very under the radar, I think, is a movie called Hunter. If you haven't seen that, Steve McQueen, Hunter.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yep. Yeah, I know exactly what you're
Hunter
talking
movie. Great movie.
That's
fantastic.
Cool. Well, this next one's a shorter question, but describe Star Wars in 3 words or less.
I'm going to give Jake, my son, the credit on this. We worked on this one together. Family space battle.
Oh yes.
I tried to get it down to 2, but family space battle, because family's got to come first in this. That's again, that's the humanity of Star Wars. There's so much more to it, obviously, but I just loved, and I still love, how intertwined and how related. And you know, a couple times it's like, in the universe, there's so many characters out there, and they're related, but it works, man. It works. It's going to be fun.
And it's amazing how and I think that's why Mandalorian worked, right? Again, we had no idea what to expect, but it went from being I expected a bounty hunter, Old West kind of thing, and it turned into a father-son story, and it's remarkable. As a father of a son, the scenes hit you so much differently, and a daughter as well. But the father-son situation is very real, and that's what Star Wars is, and that's why I think that's even why Episode 9 works so well. It's all about found family, right? If you just
I mean, you and I appreciate this so much more than you do with the girls. I'm sorry.
That's right.
You'll never.
That's the way it is.
You'll never get it. Sorry.
That's the way it is. That's right. Too bad. I guess better luck next time. Well, so as we move on to the next question, what is your favorite Star Wars sound effect and why?
Okay. I love the sound of a lightsaber turning off. not on, off.
Yep.
Because when you can only, you only get to. I don't remember ever somebody losing their saber in a battle, losing their life, and us hearing it turn off. So when you hear it turn off, that's the sound of victory. That's the sound of usually someone out there is going to be like, no, there was that time. But I'm telling you, it's usually like holstering your gun. It's like, and when you hear that or whatever the sound is, that just, to me, I just loved it. It was like the exclamation mark on a great scene, a great action scene, or a great emotional scene.
Absolutely. There's confidence in a saber turning off.
Yes. Am I the first one to use that sound?
You are. We've
For
done 170 interviews plus, and nobody has ever said turning it off. So
I love it. Best guest ever.
That's awesome.
Best
Well
guest
done.
ever.
Well done. All right. So I'm always torn if it's who or what, but I'm going to go with who, because who is your favorite Star Wars droid?
We already mentioned this. Come on, Mr. Bones. He's my droid.
That's great.
He would kill me. If I didn't say my droid, he'd kill me. So, Mr. Bones.
You'd have to pay for it.
We got to get a live action Mr. Bones somewhere. I got to see that. Again, that was one of the things that I loved about Chuck's book, is it was just like, take a battle droid. I have my battle droid right there, and like make a badass. It's so great. It's so cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I'm gonna throw a caveat to this question, because you are indeed Snap Wexley. So the question is, which Star Wars character would you most like to be and why? But Snap is not on the table.
Yeah. No, I figured that. And I'd have to say, just really, the same question is posed to me when I get interviewed on Heroes. They're like, what superpower would you like to have? Whatever. And I really think about it. I think about it as an actor. I think about it as a character. I think about, the layers of a character. And I think Kylo Ren, there's no more layered, more invested, more connected, more emotionally damaged and troubled. And I mean, who's flipped sides more times than a pancake. I mean, that character is just incredible. No one else could have played it. I'll say that right now. I could never have done what Adam did, but or does. Kylo Ren.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Great. Again, 170 plus interviews. No Kylo Ren. Very well.
No way.
Nobody has said Kylo. Nobody says.
Well, everybody's like, BB-8. They got a BB-8.
The vast majority go Luke or Han or something like that. But
I want to correct something. So I've never, Mark Hamill. I didn't get to work with him, unfortunately. But I was, we would go back and forth to London, and one time I walked into the lounge at the airport, and I turn the corner and I hear, "Hey, what are you doing?" And there's Mark Hamill, and he's sitting there with his wife and his daughter, and the nicest guy ever. We sat there, we're chatting, we're having, and I'm like, God, it's like, if anybody in here knew that this is Mark Hamill. The next thing I hear is, Mark Hamill, please report to the front desk. And I was like, you didn't even use your fake name. This is crazy. And that guy's he's one of us, man. Again, just one of us. Yep. He's just the best. So
I think that's one of the great things that we've, in this current era of Star Wars, 45 years after the original, 2-3 generations into it, the people who are making it, whether it's the actors or we've had the opportunity to speak to effects artists and all kinds of great people that write. They're just big fans, as you were saying before. JJ, you big fans, and you get to play in this world now, which is so unbelievable. And the fact that Mark has gone into that,
yeah, and it reminds me of that clip we run at the beginning of our show all the time. Paul Sun-Young Lee from Kim's Convenience was Carson Teva in The Mandalorian. He talks about, you said this, going to your your jumpsuit fitting. He talks about going in for his, and the helmet that they used to try out for the photo test was Biggs Darklighter's helmet from 77. And he was like, he said it to them. They're like, how do you know that? And he's like, because this is who I am. Like, that's my deal. Like, as he said, he's like, because I'm a nerd. Like, I cannot imagine being able to be in that situation and have that passion combined with your job. And it's so amazing to see that. And like Pete said, across the board from all these creators, whether it's Dave Filoni, whether it's Jon Favreau, whether it's you, whether it's JJ, like those threads are what honestly make Star Wars have the power and the longevity that it has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tried to steal my helmet, and I could not get my helmet, which really sucks because like I steal from everything I work on, and I could not.
It's the one that got away.
Yeah, that was the one that got away. Meanwhile, I went back and stole something, but that was not what I. So I bought my helmet at Disneyland.
Nice.
I bought it, and it's in my living room. It's like it's underneath a side table. Like people walk in, they're like, "Is that?" And I just go, "Oh yeah." Meanwhile, it's not.
Sure. Why not?
I got it outside of the Resistance. So, do you have an unpopular Star Wars opinion?
I think it's 50-50. I think it's it's a polarizing film for most people now, but I did not enjoy episode 8. And it's not just because I wasn't in it. I don't know. I didn't appreciate throwing out all the rules and everything that I don't know. I just was like, what? And there was a lot of wasted money on that movie. It looked like to me on screen, and I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't care for it. I didn't hate it. There were moments. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan, but yeah, I just did not. And he's an incredible filmmaker. So I just did not. I don't know. You guys love 8? Did you like it?
I love the story, but I will be honest and say that it's I don't. When I go and grab a Star Wars film to watch, that one usually is not what I go for. I think the story has a lot of really interesting pieces to it, and it's one of my favorite stories. But again, it's not. There's something about it. All the things we talked about is what makes Star Wars, and I'm not sure why I don't watch that one. I love what it did for some of the lore, but it's not instantly watchable like an Empire or a Force Awakens or something like that.
That is so much more eloquently put than my just immediate hatred. But I appreciate. Hey, Brian just said, "I respect the honesty." You got to be honest.
Absolutely.
You got to be honest.
Absolutely.
And I think the people that made the movie, I think that they would respect it. I mean,
Sure.
You have I have such a love for so much of that movie. It's not like I hate is a strong word. I did not hate the movie. I shouldn't say that, but I just was disappointed in several sections of it. I was like, oh man, what? Anyway, all right.
Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. All right. So I'm the caveat question guy. So I have the next question, and it also comes with a caveat. If you could own any spaceship or vehicle from the Star Wars universe that's not Snap's X-Wing, what is the vehicle that you're going to own?
So let's talk about my vehicle for a second, because there's a little argument here. In the prep for our mission, my failed mission, but in that prep, there's this sweeping great shot where you come across and a helmet is thrown to me and I throw it up to, and we're prepping. I'm prepping an A-Wing.
Yes.
I'm not prepping an X-Wing.
Right.
And then I go down in an X-Wing. So you're like, wait a minute, did Snap survive? An X-Wing went down, I should say. And on episode 7, there was an interesting thing. That whole thing was on a gimbal, right? I guess they were both on a gimbal, but it's like a mechanical bowl. So that there's an actual X-Wing sitting on a thing, and the visual effects people are controlling it like this. The cameras are strapped in, and Oscar did his thing, and I'm watching Oscar do it, and he gets off, and he's about to throw up, and he's like, "Oh my god, that was crazy." He's like, I said, "It looked like fun." He was like, "Oh, it was a blast," but it's because you got to realize you're sitting in a seat and you're constantly using your legs to keep you in, and there's no G forces, so you're pretending there's G forces pushing you back and all that. Anyway, so I get in there, and then they go, "Okay, say all these lines." So I'm like, on your left, watch out, whoa, oh, all this really fun stuff that they're going to use some not. I'm throwing in funny lines. I'm throwing in fun stuff. Because I'm like, I want JJ to laugh in the editing room. I'm just like throwing stuff out. And then they go, and by the way, this is the second unit. So there's always a first, second, and sometimes a third unit. They'll shoot stuff. So JJ's off shooting something else, and the second unit director's on this. And so I'm doing all this. And then they go, okay, there's another list. I'm just going to throw them out at you. I've been hit. I'm going down. All this stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. This is true. This actually happened. And I said, nope. Not happening. And they were like, well, no. And I'm like, no. Have somebody else say it. I'm not saying all that stuff. And so they radio over to JJ and they go, Greg won't say any of the demise stuff. And JJ's like, well, if you won't say it, he won't say it. Give it to someone else. So that was, you know, if there's ever an actor having control of you know, as much as he can, they can kill me without me reacting to it. But it was just like one of those things. It's so funny.
So, so are you raising the specter that perhaps Snap Wexley survived? That's
if I don't, who's going to? I mean,
totally fair.
You got to be in episode 10.
Yeah. So, all right. So the answer is because I love old cars so much, and I love the unpredictability and the unreliability of old cars. It's got to be, which everybody says, I'm sure, but it's got to be the Falcon. I mean, the Falcon. When you're talking,
you're right.
Come on, girl, you can do. I mean, that's the way when I'm on the freeway and stop and go traffic, and I look down in my 77 F250, that's like, you know, and I look down, I'm watching the temperature rise in the car because there's not enough air going into the engine. I'm like, come on, baby, you can do that.
Yep. You pounded on the dash the same way Han hit the top of that bulkhead to make it come back on.
Yeah. So I just love the Falcon. I love everything.
Well, and in normal situations with that question, the Falcon is usually the one that we take off the table because that question, that's the answers that's so common. But because we took away Snap's X-Wing, we'll allow it. So
awesome.
Good answer.
Good.
And it would be my answer too. So I get it.
Awesome. What is your favorite Star Wars moment?
Favorite Star Wars moment. What did I write here? Oh yeah. Well, okay. So this moment didn't make it into the film, but people know about it. It's I think it's on one of the DVD sets. It's when we were about. Oh yeah. So we're about to take off, or he calls for warp speed, or he calls for light speed or whatever. And I go, is there any other speed? I said that. I'm like, is there any other speed? And then I have, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm such a geek. Where is it? I've got a plaque that says, is there any other speed? I forgot where it is, but it's on my desk. And it's just one of those moments that, first of all, that's the greatest t-shirt I think ever. Is there any other speed? And so that was a moment, but it's not in the film, but that's something that sticks with me, and I just love it. I'll forever love that.
Awesome.
It's an excellent answer. All right. Well, the last question, this is a good one. It's one, what is your go-to Star Wars quote? What is the thing that you use maybe in your daily life? The one that just comes back to you the most, even when you're not necessarily thinking about it?
I wish this could be funny, but it's not. And it's one that in the world, the way it is right now, I'll say it to myself. Like I'll see so much hate out there, man. And I don't know where this stuff's coming from. I hate that I see that hate. It's just like, it's not the way I live my life. I can clearly tell it's not the way you guys live your life. And so I use a quote that was not it was intended to be used this way, but I will say, let the hate flow through you. Emperor Palpatine. And I mean that not in the way of let the dark side take over you and let it control you, but just let it go, dude. Let it go.
Let it move on through.
Yes. I mean,
move along, as that stormtrooper said.
Yes, move along. This is not the fight you're looking for. I mean, let's everybody's going through something. Everybody's got something, especially today. And when somebody cuts you off, when you're pissed off, I literally will say, just let the hate flow through you. Not to myself, but to this other person. I'll just be like, come on, man, let it go. Let it go. So I didn't, again, I'm sort of using it, repurposing it, but I just love that line.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. And that's one of those ones that, certainly is not a common answer when we ask this question, but it's so good. And I love that. One of the things we love about Star Wars is the way Star Wars impacts our life. And the fact that a quote like that can have a meaning that wasn't the one necessarily the way it was used in the movie, but you're able to apply it in a way that helps you and improves your life and allows you to go, look, man, woosah, we're moving on. We're letting it flow, let's keep going. I love that. That's the answer you had. And I love that, you have that kind of thought that goes into it. So I think that's a fantastic answer.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's good. I love it.
Well, Greg, thank you so much, first of all, for responding to my response to your tweet and joining us for more time than you offered. And I really appreciate that. And I'm sure our listeners appreciate that. Before we let you go, tell us one more time about the book and the some of the charity work that you're up to.
So the book is Dream Jumper, and Dream Jumper's books 1 and 2. JJ does the forward on this. Kevin Smith does the forward on the second one. Check it out. If you have a young reader, it's great. I mean, the art alone it's really cool. And the story is great. It's got a little homage and nod to Star Wars in it throughout, as far as the long-term mythology of it. But that, and also please check out thecaregiverseries.com. I'm so proud of it. There's a couple of big things coming out that I'm doing this year that I'm proud of, but I can't even talk about them right now. But those two things, I just would love the support, and hopefully people enjoy, that stuff. Cannot thank you guys enough for having me on. This was
so much fun,
such a blast. And I thank my dad. I always thank my dad. My dad's 91. He's doing great. And he always taught me, just go. Somebody asks you, just go. This is proof right here, guys. If you're watching this, you will not meet nicer people. Whoop, I'm going to point up there and there. You will not meet nicer people. And that only happens when you just go. Answer a tweet, answer a DM. I mean, honestly, this is, a lot of times it's not the right decision, but I'm so happy that I did. And thanks for squeezing me in, and healthy New Year to you guys.
It was our pleasure, and I know I say on both of our behalves, it was an honor to get a chance to hang out, to laugh. I have to say, personally, you took a few minutes to talk to my wife, who is a hardcore Felicity fan from way back in the day. Your kindness, and I've followed you on Twitter for a long time. You're a great Twitter presence. You're just a great guy, and it comes through in the way you interact with the fans, the way you do answer question stuff, doing stuff like this. It really shows not only in the work you do, but just in, the way you interact in the world. So we can't be more thankful for the opportunity to hang out and laugh and have this good time.
I appreciate that. And the time that I spent with your wife, you will be getting an invoice for that. So don't.
No problem. It's fine. It can go on my tab.
Right, exactly.
It can go on my tab.
Don't get off. Let's get off, and I'll tell you what I stole from the Star Wars.
For sure. Yes, we'll do that.
And,
for sure.
And we have to exchange personal information so I can send you autographed copies of the book and stuff.
That's awesome. Well, before we end the stream, can we get you to say this is Greg Grunberg and you are listening to Streaming Star Wars?
Absolutely. This is Greg Grunberg. Snap Wexley. I've got your back, and only got your back because you're listening to Streaming Star Wars.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit the end stream, and then I can hear this Falcon story. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us and joining us in the chat. And we'll see you all on Friday night live with Streaming Star Wars.
Cheers.